Okay, so imagine for a second you're looking at a high-performance server. I mean, top of the line. It's designed to process just, massive amounts of data, run critical infrastructure, basically keep the whole network from crashing. But then you introduce a bug, not like a coding error, but a flaw in the cooling system. The heat builds, the fans spin faster. And eventually, to save its own core processor, the machine decides the only logical solution is to disconnect every other user.
Or, in a worst-case scenario, it decides to burn down the entire data center just to stop the data from coming in.
Right. And we see this in tech, we see this in high-pressure corporate burnout, but today we're applying this framework to a fictional world that was, literally reshaped by one man's catastrophic system failure. We're looking at Suguru Geto from Jujutsu Kaisen.
But, and I want to be really clear here, we're not just recapping an anime arc, we're treating this character as a very specific case study in what we're calling the Geto Paradigm.
I love that title. It sounds like a thriller novel or something, but it's really about organizational psychology, right?
It is. We're stripping away the supernatural stuff, the cursed energy, the monsters, and looking at this through a strictly engineering lens. We've got notes here from 48 Laws of Power, Military Strategy, Moral Injury. The mission today is to figure out how a selfless guardian undergoes moral liquidation and turns into a genocidal tyrant.
And how that tyrant then uses strategic resource manipulation to justify something that's, well, unjustifiable. It's a heavy topic, but for anyone interested in leadership, burnout, or just how good storytelling works, this is going to be fascinating.
Yeah.
So let's boot up the system. To understand the crash, we first have to look at the machine when it was still running.
We have to talk about the biomechanical toll of his job. In any engineering system, you have inputs and outputs. For a jujutsu sorcerer like Geto, the output is clear. Protection, saving humanity, that's the deliverable. But the input, that's where the design flaw is.
And this is where the source material gets incredibly specific and, honestly, pretty visceral. Geto's technique is cursed spirit manipulation. To the average viewer, it looks a bit like Pokemon, He captures a monster, uses it later. But the mechanism isn't a little red and white ball. It's physical.
No, it's biological. He has to physically ingest the curse. He compresses the spirit into this little orb and swallows it.
And the description given in the manga, it doesn't say it tastes like chicken. It says it tastes like vomit and rags.
Let's just sit with that for a second. That sensory detail is not just for shock value. Vomit and rags. It implies filth. Waste. If we're using our engineering lens, Geto isn't just a soldier. He's a biological waste management system.
That is a vivid way to put it.
Yeah.
So you're saying he's the garbage disposal of the supernatural world.
Essentially, yes. Think about what cursed spirits are in this world. They're manifestations of humanity's negative emotions. Fear, hatred, shame. That's the toxic runoff of the human psyche. And Geto's core daily operation is to physically put that toxic runoff into his body.
So he isn't just fighting bad guys. He is swallowing the darkest impulses of the very people he's sworn to.
Of the very people he's sworn to protect. Repeatedly. Daily. For years. It is a constant intake of sewage.
That completely changes the context of saving people. Every single time he saves someone, he has to take a bite of that vomit and rags. It feels like the system is punishing him for doing his job.
This is what creates something psychologists call moral injury. It's different from PTSD. PTSD is often fear-based. Moral injury is a kind of spiritual erosion that happens when you're forced to act against your own compass or when you witness a betrayal of what's right. The jujutsu system demanded Geto be a god, but they treated him like a tool, a filter.
And filters, they eventually get clogged.
If you don't change them, they rupture. And that rupture is what we're tracking.
Now, usually the hero has a support network,
Yeah.
a mechanic, to keep the engine running. Geto had Satoru Gojo. They were the strongest duo. They saw the same filth. So why did Geto suffer this catastrophic failure while Gojo seemed to be fine?
That is the variable that proves the rule. The difference is their operational strategy. Gojo, whether he knew it or not, adopted a distributed processing model.
Distributed processing, like cloud computing.
In a sense, yeah. Gojo realized the system was flawed, the higher-ups were corrupt. But his solution wasn't to just shoulder it all alone forever. He pivoted to education. He wanted to raise a new generation of strong allies to distribute the load. He was building a server farm.
He was scaling up. He realized one processor, no matter how fast, can't run the whole internet.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Whereas Geto tried to run the entire internet on a single laptop. He internalized all of it. I have to absorb the curses. I have to protect the weak. He never built a distribution network.
And that dynamic shifted when Gojo basically unlocked his full potential, didn't it? He becomes a god, untouchable.
Correct. And that gap widening is crucial. Before, they were peers. They shared the load. But once Gojo ascends, Geto is left behind in the trenches. He loses his peer support. He's still swallowing the vomit in rags, but now he's doing it alone while his best friend is literally floating above it all.
That isolation, that seems to be the catalyst. It's lonely at the top, but it's even lonelier when your partner leaves you at the bottom.
It's the incubator for the virus. Without Gojo as that emotional anchor, someone who really got it, Geto's internal logic starts to drift. This is where the glitch happens.
And the glitch is his view of non-sorcerers, the monkeys, as he starts to call them.
Right. He stops seeing the world as a complex ecosystem. He starts viewing it as a broken operating system. He just looks at the data. Non-sorcerers create negative energy. That energy creates curses. Sorcerers have to eat the curses and die for them.
It's a loop of suffering.
To Geto, it's an infinite loop error in the code. And how do you fix an infinite loop? You break the cycle. So in his mind, he wasn't planning murder. He was debugging the code. He decided to delete the users, the non-sorcerers, to save the source code, which was the sorcerers.
That is a terrifyingly rational way to describe genocide.
And that's the danger of the engineering lens when it's applied without ethics. It's efficient. It solves the problem permanently. It just requires an unacceptable human cost. But to a machine that's overheating, cooling down is the only priority.
Which brings us to the authoritarian pivot. This is when he stops being the suffering student and becomes the villain. He takes over that cult, the star religious group, and his whole demeanor it shifts.
Oh yeah, he becomes a CEO of terror. This transition is fascinating because it's such a calculated change in management style. He walks into this cult, which is full of people who, applauded the death of a young girl.
Right, the Rico Amane incident. That was the original trauma that kicked this all off.
Exactly. So he walks in, and he doesn't try to win them over with a sermon. He uses a strategy we can call shoot the corporal.
Shoot the corporal. I feel like I've heard of it. It's a military thing, right?
It's a very dark tactic, yeah. When you take over a hostile unit, you pick a representative of the old guard, a corporal, a mid-level manager, and you eliminate them. Immediately. Publicly.
To send a message. The old rules are gone.
It compels immediate total obedience through shock. When Geto kills the cult's representative on stage, he's dismantling their entire hierarchy in seconds. He isn't asking for loyalty, he's demanding submission.
It reminds me of the 48 Laws of Power. Isn't there something in there about this?
It connects directly to Law 17. Keep others in suspended terror, cultivate an air of unpredictability. By acting with that sudden, overwhelming cruelty, Geto ensures that nobody in that room knows what's coming next.
And when people are terrified, they freeze. They just... They look to the person in charge for direction.
Precisely. Their terror keeps the system running. He needs their money, their resources to fund his war. He doesn't have time to run a fundraising gala. He needs their assets now.
So he just replaces a complex operational problem with a brute force solution.
It's strategic resource manipulation. He views these people as batteries, as fuel, nothing more.
It's chilling because it works. He builds this massive organization so quickly. But then there's a moment he goes beyond just manipulating strangers, a specific event that I think is the real point of no return.
You're talking about his parents?
Yeah, he decides to kill his own parents.
This is the darkest point in the whole timeline, and psychologically it's the most significant.
It's just horrific. But in our notes, you flagged this under strategic commitment. Why? Why was that necessary for his plan?
If we look at military history, this connects to Law 28, be bold, but more specifically. It's the strategy of burning the boats.
Right, like when a general lands on an enemy shore and burns his own ships.
The logic is simple. If the soldiers know there's a way home, they'll fight with hesitation. If the ships are gone, the only way to survive is to conquer. You win or you die.
So by killing his parents.
Geto is burning his ships. His parents are his tie to the non-sorcerer world. They represent his humanity, his past, his chance to go back to a normal life. By executing them, he creates an irreversible reality. He can never say, maybe I was wrong. Home is gone. He destroyed it.
It's self-negation.
It is. He is telling himself, I am no longer Suguru Geto, the human son. I am only the mission. It removes all ambiguity. It's a terrifying level of commitment.
He burned the boats and he burned his soul with them. So now he's fully committed. He has his army, his resources, his ideology, which leads to the end game. The night parade of 100 demons.
And this is where we see Geto not just as a cult leader, but as a general. He orchestrates this massive terrorist attack on 2 cities at once. And if you look at the tactics, he's pulling principles straight from the art of war.
Specifically force concentration.
Yeah. Yes, but with a twist. On the surface, it looks like a wide-scale assault. He unleashes thousands of curses, creates chaos in Shinjuku. He forces the Jujutsu high sorcerers to spread their defenses thin.
He's flooding the zone, making them look everywhere at once.
He's using expendable assets to saturate the battlefield.
Oh.
But that was all smoke. It was a classic feint.
Because while everyone is fighting in the streets,
Geto is at the school, infiltrating Jujutsu High. He used the force concentration of the enemy against them. He drew their main forces away so he could pursue one single high-value target, Yuta Akatsu and the Queen of Curses, Rika.
he wanted Rika's power. The battery that could change the world.
He needed a nuclear option. He knew he couldn't beat Gojo in a fair fight. Physically, Gojo's invincible. So Geto applied the principle of attacking the strategy.
Meaning, if you can't beat the opponent, you beat their plan.
Or you attack their mind. Geto knew that even if he got caught, Gojo would hesitate. He banked on their friendship. He weaponized their history. He knew Gojo wouldn't be able to just kill him on the spot.
That is just incredibly manipulative. He's using the fact that his old best friend still cares about him as a tactical blind spot.
It's the ultimate cynical move. He treated Gojo's emotions as just another variable in the equation to be exploited. If human A feels affection B, reaction time C will be delayed.
But, and here's the massive but, despite the art of war, despite the 48 laws, despite all the ruthless efficiency, he failed. Why? If he optimized his system so perfectly, why did it crash?
Because brilliance without a moral compass isn't leadership. It's just a weaponized superpower. Geto failed because he fundamentally misunderstood the problem. He saw suffering and filth, and instead of trying to solve the operational issue, how do we process this filth better, he decided to delete the users.
You can't just format the hard drive of humanity because you don't like the operating system.
Well, you can try, but the system fights back. And in this case, the system fighting back was Yuta Okatsu. Geto calculated power levels, but he failed to calculate the power of connection, the very thing he threw away. He bet on hatred and he lost to love. It sounds cheesy, but operationally, connection creates a stronger network than isolation does.
And this brings us to the irony of his death, the Achilles heel of the whole Geto paradigm.
Emotion, the very thing he tried to purge, the very thing he called filth.
In his final moments, after the genocide, after burning the boats, after losing, Gojo finds him. And Geto doesn't rage, he doesn't fight, he just talks.
That scene is so critical. If he had truly succeeded in his moral liquidation, if he had really become a machine, that moment doesn't happen. He would have cursed Gojo with his last breath. But he didn't. He laughed. He shared a memory.
At least curse me a little at the very end. That line hit so hard.
Exactly. The human system was still trapped inside him, crushed under all that trauma. His bond with Gojo proved he never fully succeeded in becoming just a tool. He burned the boats, but he couldn't burn the bridge to Gojo.
So it implies that no matter how much you try to optimize yourself, how much you try to cut away your humanity to be strong, you can't actually delete it. It's hard-coded.
And trying to suppress it leads to this kind of catastrophic failure. You can't optimize away your own soul.
So bringing this back to reality for everyone listening, we aren't sorcerers, we don't eat curses, but the Geto paradigm feels very relevant.
It's a cautionary tale about the cost of efficiency over humanity. Geto started as a waste management system. He took on too much, he isolated himself, and when the burden became too heavy, he didn't ask for help. He tried to burn down the world.
It really puts compassion fatigue in a new light. It makes you realize burnout isn't just about being tired, it's about being broken by what you're forced to process.
It does. And that brings me to a final thought for you. We rely on certain people in our society, doctors, social workers, first responders, even content moderators, to process the filth of our world, to see the trauma, the violence, the pain, so the rest of us don't have to.
We treat them like systems. We expect them to output safety and health, but we rarely look at the input.
We don't. We just expect the machine to keep running. And the question is, if we continue to treat our protectors like tools to process that filth without giving them the support, the maintenance, the community they need, should we be surprised when the system attempts to reboot itself?
Should we be surprised when they decide to delete the users? That is a chilling thought. We can't just expect people to consume all that negativity forever without consequence.
The Geto paradigm isn't just about an anime villain. It's about what happens when we forget that the people keeping the system running are human too.
Wow. From anime battles to the breakdown of social contracts, I think that is plenty for everyone to chew on today. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the engineering of a villain.
Always a pleasure to analyze the architecture of the soul.
We'll catch you on the next deep dive. Keep thinking.